What was your first console as a kid? When it comes to games as a medium, I don't think we give quite enough of the credit that they deserve in shaping us through our developing years. Some of us grew up with ultra-modern consoles at the time, and some of us maybe had a relative's hand-me-down that was outdated, sure, yet it was still fun. Did you buy your first system, saving up some summer job money? Was it a special edition, maybe cooler than your friends at the time? Did you buy your games piece by piece, or did you have access to a whole library? I grew up with the Gamecube, which shaped my taste in games, of course, music, franchises, and gave me a broader worldview. It was a quirky little console, and I managed to have access to a wide variety of casual games, as well as mature titles. But imagine playing all the butt-rock Need for Speeds and tough-as-nails Madden games with this piece of 90s workout equipment. No hate for the GameCube controller, it's got a massive fan base even today, and has been reprised for every Nintendo console after. The reason I bring it up is that it was my first controller I had as a kid. I had 4 siblings, and each of us had sort of claimed one of the colors at the time. Silver, black, orange, purple. Looking back, what sort of Spirit Halloween palette is this? Maybe they didn't want primary colors to clash with the colored buttons, but like, why not do blue? Everyone loves blue. Anyway, these controllers were tanky. We essentially still have all the day one controllers lying around, and even though they look battered and beaten, they handle like a well-oiled machine. Thank goodness we did not have to use those things. Alright, I've got another question. When did you realize that some people have standards and some don't? To call out one brand specifically, I have a feeling that old school's controllers are bought and sold out of desperation. Like, how badly do you need a GameCube controller right now? And how closely can we get the price down to a Dave's double? Third-party controllers have always been a mixed bag, some adding features, changing layouts, but the offerings of the early days were less than desirable. It's the joke, right? The Mad Cats, the generics, what bro hands to you. But I will not stand for the complete slander of third-party controllers. And that's the topic for today's video. For every gross bargain bin e-waste design, there's a reasonable, standout controller that's both cost-effective, feature-rich, and ergonomically sound. Today we'll be looking at my favorite budget third-party option as a child, PDP's Afterglow.
Now I feel like a scientist. Finally, green.
The PDP Afterglow product stack has essentially looked the same throughout the years. A smooth, completely opaque, plastic shell that shows the internals and usually incorporates lighting in the form of little LED bulbs. Whatever color you picked when you bought the controller was what you got back in the day. Addressable lighting? Yeah, right, you're lucky if you could even turn it on or off. For this video, I nabbed a bunch of used Afterglow products to try out. They're actually still very affordable, honestly speaking, costing around $15 to $25 depending on the item and condition. The first controller in this stack is arguably the most interesting. Oh man, the 2000s, where apparently the only two things gamers want are almost Gary Busey and
a real set of badonkers, packets of debong honkeros, massive
Pelican Accessories was a Mad Catz competitor of its time, making an assortment of affordable accessories and controllers that remixed the OEM models in some way, sometimes adding features like wireless connectivity and non-standard layouts, while making sure you felt uncomfortable about it. Yeah, it seemed like Pelican had that gaming magazine spunk in their blood, which was even funnier seeing a sexual innuendo advert that says available at Toys R Us and Best Buy at the bottom. Anyway, Pelican was producing a lot of these add-ons for the Dreamcast, original Xbox, PlayStation 1 and 2, and the N64 and GameCube. They slowly dwindled off, or so I thought. I had assumed that Afterglow branding was purchased from Pelican and sold to PDP, or Performance Design Products if you didn't know what it stood for. However, they had established in 1990, and it looks like they've been operating with the Pelican Accessories branding in some capacity for a while. So it turns out Afterglow, being a product series, is used by Pelican Accessories, who are both in cahoots with PDP. Considering how Afterglow survived Pelican's era and is still branding used today, maybe they realized that the product series branding was much more powerful in the space. Going back to my pre-research knowledge, I knew nothing about Afterglow's ownership until I went through trying to buy this video's controllers. Seeing the PDP badge on the boxes also clued me in, but can you blame me for not noticing earlier? I mean, I was a kid and bright colors, you know? Anyway, the first controller I have here in this stack is a PlayStation 3 controller by GameStop. So it looks like PDP took this Pelican PS3 design and did a store exclusive for GameStop, and it looks to be a budget option. My guess is that maybe they still had the molding and inventory of this design and didn't want to continue releasing it under Pelican. And that way, when you buy this controller and it's not good, people can blame GameStop, not PDP. I tried playing a little bit of Destiny 2 on this thing, and although I switched to mouse and keyboard months ago, Steam Big Picture mode worked great at enabling this ancient relic, and I had no issues after that. The controller itself feels extremely unique, with essentially forcing the middle fingers on the triggers, which are much lower than usual, and the bumpers covered by the index fingers. I've never been a PlayStation guy, only using a DualShock 4 for maybe like a month to play PS4 games with some friends, but otherwise, I think this is fun. Sure, there's no rumble, and the chances of finding a lightly used one like this is very slim, but with Steam recognizing this in big picture mode, I was able to play Destiny no problem. If you're this far in, you're probably wondering, where are the lights? Great question. I was wondering the same thing. With the Afterglow controllers that I used as a kid, they had these teeny black buttons on the back that cycled the LEDs on and off. Curiously, this model doesn't have them. Opening up the controller was pretty simple, and once I got inside, I noticed that yes, there were no LED bulbs hiding anywhere. Maybe this controller was sold by GameStop without LEDs, but it was still produced by PDP, as their branding is set in the molding. However, after some online research, I stumbled upon this old review of this controller, and even the reviewer had gone through the trouble of yanking out the LED bulbs because the lighting effect was so distracting. You have to remember, this model came with no on or off switch, so honestly, you can't blame them. While opening it, some of the contact points looked a little scuffed, and there was one screw missing from the internals, so I'm leaning towards it being hard modded. Either way, not too bad, but there was room for improvement. PDP went on to release 2 other PS3 controller variants in the future, under the actual PDP badge, both taking on a smaller DualShock 3 form factor. Imagine with me for a second. Your parents decide it's time to get a family Xbox 360. You peek inside the cardboard box from GameStop and see a clear controller. You take it out and plug it in. Immediately, you're flashbanged by a wave of green emanating from the device. When your eyes come to, you can see the internals lit up, and the glow alone lights up the room. With every shot in game, your controller jolts you like no other. A powerful and immersive rumble. This is the coolest controller you've ever owned. It broke after a month, so I had to get another one. This thing is what inspired this whole video in the first place. It left such a major impact on my childhood. After this one, I don't recall ever owning another Afterglow controller after that though. Ergonomically, it's almost identical to the standard Xbox 360 controller, albeit it has that budget controller charm of slightly too clicky or too mushy buttons. It's been a while since I've held an OEM Xbox 360 controller, but either way, I wouldn't complain about being handed this one. Compared to the last one we looked at, it does make a change that I'm on the fence about. One thing that becomes apparent about any of the Afterglow controllers is the material of the clear plastic. The smoothness of it feels gross after a few minutes of play, and when you look at the way OEM controllers implement smooth and shiny aspects of their controllers, they tend to avoid utilizing this material on high traffic surfaces. I mean, if you think about the Wii, the console and the remote are glossy white on the front, but the plastic where you cradle it in your hand has some texture. Not to mention the rubber jacket they include on their Wii remotes. As a kid, having grubby little mitts is on brand, so who really cares? But using this controller for this video had me washing and drying my hands way more frequently. On my Windows laptop, I played a little GTA 5 this time because it's one of the few games I still use a controller on. Getting into the game, I had the feature where whenever the rumble activated, the lights would blink rapidly. This blew my mind in shooters as a kid, but when driving in the game, it was very distracting and didn't sync up quite right. When driving, the trigger actuation took a lot more pressure than the Xbox Series controller that I'm used to. However, having the fine motor controls of a gamepad was all I needed in the game. You can see how precisely I can control tire movement and acceleration. This comes in handy when playing in free mode, more than stunt races, but you get the picture. Before we delve into the Nintendo controllers, I'd like to touch on some of the headsets I've got on hand for the video. I lived through the early days of headsets, from the one-sided headsets that only play chat audio, to the proprietary Xbox 360 connectors, to combined audio solutions with big transceivers and convoluted cable solutions, to today, where I just plug in a USB stick and I get a great microphone, a great audio experience, and super low latency. Being on Xbox, I saw headsets that looked like this and this. What were those Sony boys up to? This beaut right here is the Afterglow AP3 communicator for the PS3. It has a clear plastic shell and one LED, which is great because it's the only headset I have to show today that has a cosmetic LED, but I'll get back to that. This packaging is from a bygone era. I mean, the fonts, the logos, the dark print, it makes me nostalgic. In the box, we get this massive manual that's in every language and a short yellowed connector that the PS3 and Wii U used more than anything else. I looked it up and it's Mini B, which I don't mind so much. It's a sturdier connector than Micro B, and I believe the PS3 controllers at the time used it as well, so that's some foresight. You might be thinking I'm gonna absolutely dunk on this thing. No game audio, one LED, outdated connector, but no, this is actually the one headset I have from PDP that I like. For starters, you have to understand the conditions a user is in to need this product. Console gaming in this generation was meant for TVs, and with games being more casual back then, playing audio through the TV was fine. With how light and nonchalant this thing is, it's a great way to chat with friends hands-free without a bulky headset. The device itself isn't locked down either. I managed to get it connected to my phone and was able to take calls with it. I was told my voice sounded fine, which I'll take. While these tiny Bluetooth headsets aren't quite in demand anymore, this one still works, and for that I salute this little fella. Next is the PlayStation 4 Level 1 headset. It looks like PDP doesn't even bother offering these single-sided headsets anymore, making this PlayStation 4 headset a relic too. The product comes disassembled out of the box, and all the parts fit in the palm of my hand. This can play both chat and game audio. For some reason, the headsets of this generation following the PS3 and Xbox 360 started to use the Afterglow name without including lighting effects to any degree. Instead, they've decided that the branding is having exposed internals, which I mean, sure, but these products were opaque to show the LED bulbs, and seeing the PCB was simply a consequence, not the whole point. On this Level 1 headset, I'm trying to figure out who this is for. My first thought was kids, but after that, I thought about how many adults would have used the PlayStation Chat features more. Maybe this headset fits a more living room style approach, where the TV is playing audio at the same time as the headset. Casual and sports titles don't really rely on spatial audio too much, meaning that the lightweight and lack of features would essentially be a feature. Moving on from that, I managed to find an open box AG6 headset as well, labeled for Xbox. It's a standard affair, 3.5mm jack, removable mic, controls on the wires. It just doesn't feel Afterglow though. Clear plastic and no lighting just doesn't fit the brand. There is an AG9 Plus that offers LED lighting, and I get it. It's difficult to get LEDs working going off of a single 3.5mm jack, and it seems like they were trying to make the LEDs a premium feature going off the back of the box art. I can understand trying to differentiate a product stack, but like, come on, if you can't capture the sub-brand's aesthetic, don't bother releasing it under Afterglow, release it under PDP. Now you might be wanting me to do some tests, you know, like mic quality, audio quality, battery life, blah blah blah. However, I think if there's one thing that these reviewers are constantly forgetting, it's this crucial test. Can it survive losing a comp game? Alright, first off, this AG6 stands no chance. It's got cables coming off both left and right ear cups, and with it taking up that much space, it's got a high huckability score. PlayStation 6 Level 1, it's tiny, sure, but it's going to be a goner the second you get C9 on Busan. It's a fragile piece of hardware, and that lightweight design is going to be detrimental. One trip up or snag could mean that 3.5mm jack bends or snaps off, maybe getting stuck in your DualShock 4. Our best contender is that Bluetooth Johnny English spy headset. In your fit of rage missing that headshot, you'll be hucking that G Pro X wireless or knocking over your Phase Ghost Energy from yesterday. That earpiece ain't going nowhere. Moving on, for the last of the controllers, they're all Nintendo, going from the Wii to the Switch. First up, I found this combo Wiimote and Nunchuck for around 20 bones, which I thought was great. Trying out the Wiimote, I could appreciate the remix of button placements. The plus and minus buttons hang off the sides of the controllers and are satisfying to press. And while it does take some getting used to, the home button being at the top right adjacent to the power button looks great. There are two things I'm not a fan of though. One, the Afterglow button is behind the battery door, so how are people gonna know it's behind there? Secondly, and this seems to be a common occurrence on the third-party controllers in the Wii era, but the 1 and 2 buttons are diagonal from each other, which is fine for some games. But for Mario Kart, arguably one of the few party games that requires tighter controls in a party setting, it's a little unwieldy. It does fit in a Wii wheel though, so I'm not allowed to criticize it anymore. What I will criticize is this over-engineered, tangled up, barely usable nunchuck that I had such high hopes for. I like the idea of keeping things in sets. You'll never catch me mixing Joy-Con colors ever. But this thing wouldn't even belong in the dentist's office little box of trinkets for being good at your checkup, which sucks for little Timmy. Instead, he's getting a copy of Dingo's at dinner time. Let's start with this thing's gimmick. No, it just couldn't have been a normal functioning Afterglow product that lights up. It needs to be different. The connector rolls up into this little spool thing, which in theory is pretty cool, but the implementation here is so poor. First off, the cable doesn't lock into place, and instead it's constantly pulling from the chuck. Secondly, it looks like the light wear from the previous owner has already ate through the flimsy cable and exposed some wiring. Thirdly, the lights are flickering, probably from the cable damage. Other than that, it works. I'm not going to tell you how well it works, it's a miracle it works. Avoid these things, just get regular chucks. But that just sucks. You know, if you've ever seen the market for used Wii remotes, you know just how badly people want to have some of these on hand for some nostalgic living room Wii Sports or Mario Party. Keeping this in mind, I think that of all the products I'm showcasing today, a solid review on this thing is of the utmost importance. So it looks like I'm going to need a second opinion. Well, at least on the Wii remote. What do you have up to today? Nothing? Great. You're gonna use this. All right, I just need your help testing a few things.
You drove all the way over here, and that's all you want to do?
Oh, come on, it's not gonna take that long. We can just start with like Wii Golf if that's okay.
Dude, that's all you gotta say.
After a lot of convincing, we set up for a 3-hole game. It looks like there was no complaints to be had on the motion controls. With my standard Wii remote, I did win by 1 stroke, which, to be fair, the original version of Wii Golf can be pretty inaccurate. This particular Wii remote I bought isn't Wii Motion Plus certified, but it looks like Afterglow did sell them with that certification with the Wii U. Oh, and look! They also redid the nunchuck without the gimmick! Well, look at that, I guess design isn't dead after all. Let's see what my brother had to say.
You know, this ain't that bad of a controller, to be honest. No one else to drive.
Moving on, for the Wii U, I've managed to find 2 different wireless Pro controllers. One takes the Mini B connector and has an internal battery, while the other has an early Xbox One controller design and takes AA batteries. We'll start with this one. The buttons in the middle are a bit tough to reach, but the sticks are placed just fine. The stick's movement from left to right seemed more significant than the other controllers I used, making Mario Kart 8 drifts feel like a workout. Here's a fun bit. I thought the battery cover on this controller looked familiar, and it turns out it will fit an original Xbox One battery cover just fine. I want to be careful and not call something like this lazy. This is great for somebody just looking for a replacement and is actually pro-consumer, so try not to knock it. The controller's bumpers and triggers are simple button presses, but the rubber domes used here give it a nice mush. Not the worst thing to use, they feel very Wii U. The second Wii U controller I've grown to like a bit more. Its buttons are a bit more reachable, the blue PCB is more aesthetic, and the triggers and bumpers have an Xbox 360 design to them. I think if you needed a pro controller for the Wii U, this would be the one to get. Both controllers handle fine and would make for a great Mario Kart 8 or Smash Bros. Fight pad. Lastly, and I think most importantly, we've got the current day Switch controllers. I'm excited about this market segment because if there was one console that needed third parties, it was the Switch. Modern Xbox and PlayStation controllers, pure bliss. This thing? Why? It's kind of built like a minivan, and even though it's got this front opaque plastic piece, it just doesn't have any soul. There's nothing Nintendo about this thing. The buttons and the sticks are subpar, and the bumpers and triggers are less than desirable. The battery life is okay, though it takes a while to get working again from dead, kind of like the Switch itself, and the latency on the Pro Controller is in some cases just too much for me. But hey, thank goodness it reads amiibo, has gyro for that one shrine on Breath of the Wild, and I'm on tilt controls. If I lined up some of the old Nintendo controllers, I think you get what I'm trying to say here. Considering this and the demographic for the Switch, third-party controller manufacturers like Hori and PDP have had an amazing opportunity to create cost-effective controllers as an alternative to Chris Redfield and a couple of Tic Tacs. Starting with the Afterglow Deluxe Plus audio controller, it's nice enough. I think years of work on previous controllers with the same creative direction leading up to this helped tremendously, just not with the naming schemes. The internal PCB has a way more symmetrical look, especially with the LEDs, that make it look kind of premium in a way. The LEDs this time are controllable and have standard RGB control out of the box that can be adjusted by holding the Afterglow button at the bottom and either changing through the modes with the bumpers or moving the D-pad left and right through a color wheel. The buttons have that budget clicky spunk. On the back side there are some paddles via this removable piece, though I'm not sure why it's removable since it being off affects the ergonomics in a bad way. Maybe they made swappable ones at one point, who really knows. Playing a bit of Splatoon 3, I'm liking it a lot more than the 2 Joy-Cons and the freebie grip. It does its job. I'd say it contends with the Pro Controller in some sense, although the last controller really gives it a run for its money. At first, I wanted to end the video here, since this is the most recent release of a traditional Afterglow controller, and it solves my main gripes. I didn't want to look at the new one, but honestly, I'm glad I did. You don't typically see things like this done well today, a successful rebrand. I mean, if you saw how Afterglow was advertised back in the day, you'd be wondering how it could even appeal to a younger audience.
So I had a really good time.
Well, okay, I don't normally do this on first dates. Oh, and it is way better with the lights. Just got these controllers, see? They light up. You wanna play tennis or bowling?
but I don't recall ever seeing marketing for Afterglow outside of store displays and packaging. Looking at the two boxes seems to show more of a switch in the company's creative direction rather than the sub-brand. PDP's new logo is shown on the bottom right of the new box, whereas the old badge and logos can only be seen at the bottom of the Deluxe's box. With this rebrand, we finally have a new entry, of course, the Afterglow Wave controller, a finally simple name for a simplistic design. While I was looking for my torch and pitchfork to go protest and cry mutiny over the lack of clear plastic housing, I remembered the experiences I had with the other controllers up until now. Even though I and many others are a sucker for this material, I knew it had to go eventually. Holding that smooth plastic for any extended amount of time was uncomfortable, and even with the Deluxe Plus, it was noticeably bad. With PDP's redesign here, its Afterglow brand image is essentially communicating that lighting effects are the main focus, which, to be fair, it's actually in the name. This model of controller comes in both wireless and wired variants. They offer different color options and questionable logo placement. I think I hit the sweet spot with this one. It's wired, and unlike the Deluxe Plus, the cable is non-detachable. But I'm willing to overlook that, considering the Deluxe had a micro B connector and a tight square plastic hole to plug it into. The star of the show is this diffused lighting effect. I mean, just look at that. On the sides, it's almost perfectly diffused. And sure, the joysticks have some dark areas towards the top, but if you showed both of these controllers to a kid and asked them to pick one, I'm betting on the Wave controller. Also, bonus points for them accidentally matching the gray plastic to the Wii and Wii U's cable and cable housing. Small thing, but this color always felt inviting while setting up. Going back to a bit more of Splatoon side order on this thing, I was satisfied. No problems with gameplay, and I was able to switch the lighting modes on the fly, which is a nice touch. On the back of the controller, we have these paddles, but this time, they're very clicky buttons. They're mapped to A and B by default, which I think is a little strange. I like to have these mapped to bumpers, but I didn't bother to do that for this video. They seem like they'll hold up well enough. I'm happy with this little trinket. I'll most likely end up using it as my docked controller of choice for the console, and pack it with me for when I do Smash Bros with the boys. So then, that's it. That's the last controller I have to show you. And as of recording, it's the most recent release from Afterglow. At first, I was happy to find all these great deals on retro hardware that, in most cases, holds up well enough. But as I was going through them, product after product, I think the formula was dying a bit. Thinking back to how amazed I was at that green flashbang of a 360 controller, I was wondering whatever happened to the budget third-party controller market. Don't get me wrong, I think every brand is producing some form of an e-waste controller that isn't gonna last. But this PDP rebrand has me hopeful. As a kid, if I opened this up on Christmas or my birthday, those lights would have me awestruck, I just know it. And the controller itself feels sturdy to the point where I think it lasts longer than most of these other models. That, and the fact that the retail pricing for this thing is $30, I don't think that I'd have anything to worry about. So to wrap it up, what did we learn this time? Well, Afterglow is a set of branded products sold under a bigger company. These products were originally sold under Pelican Accessories, who was either owned, bought, or worked with PDP, also called Performance Design Products LLC. Eventually, the series was only sold under PDP, dropping Pelican Accessories altogether, and then branched out to also sell headsets around the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. They offered both wired and wireless options that had a wider adoption in more budget settings. Currently, they offer Xbox and Nintendo products in a limited variety, and along with the company rebranding, they've rebooted the Afterglow series in creative direction, pushing for smooth and diffused lighting with less focus on translucent housing and an exposed PCB. I wish it ended there. It's a nice ending. But here's arguably the biggest development. A little over 2 months ago, on March 13th, PDP was acquired by Turtle Beach for $118 million. It's a bit of a difficult move to read, with there also being a shakeup in the command structure and a new CEO being named. Turtle Beach has been fighting something of an uphill battle when it comes to their controllers. Their recent premium controller had a rocky release, but the hardware was solid. Their headsets are still an extremely popular choice amongst console gamers. PDP has also seen some success in their budget market segment with their controllers, so I have a feeling that these weaknesses and strengths have the opportunity to help even out both of their divisions. Hopefully. But considering how little I know about acquisitions, I still have a bad feeling about this. For now, all we can do is wait and see if Turtle Beach decides to retire any of the PDP branding. Who knows, this might be the last we ever see of Afterglow. If it is, well, I think this Wave controller was the best product to end it on.